いきますよ天滅エージュル
UNDER17 is undoubtedly my favorite band. Prior to this, I didn't really have a particular attachment towards a specific music group beyond a passing interest in the albums, and I felt a disconnect between myself and the people making the music. I was never the type to follow the creative careers and lives of these other artists off stage as extensively as I have with Momoi Haruko and Koike Masaya. Something about this group was different. I started listening to UNDER17 in 2017 casually after watching the anime for Genshiken, but never really explored much else outside their anime music at the time. Then I forgot about them for a while. It wasn't until the summer of 2019 when I was getting into Denpa music for the first time that I rediscovered this group. It was during that fateful summer amidst my time playing Bishoujo games and rewatching Oreimo that I found music that truly made me happy. I used to listen to melancholic music because my adolescent self liked to put on a mask of stoicism and thought it was cool to LARP as a sad boy. But after a prolonged period of serious depression, I realized I never wanted to be unhappy ever again. I found solace in the music of many wonderful artists like Nanahira, Toromi, Mosaic Wave, and eventually UNDER17. I've been an avid fan of UNDER17 and Momoi Haruko ever since the idyllic days of that fateful summer. I've had their entire discography on repeat for the past 2 years and have consistently been finding new things to enjoy and appreciate about their moe music. I'm not the biggest UNDER17 fan in the world by any stretch of the imagination, but I wanted to talk about this group because I care about them a lot. And in addition, I think I might be the only one to care enough and be crazy enough to make this, so here is my unnecessarily long retrospective of the career and legacy of the world-famous moe artist, UNDER17. Alright, now for some meta stuff. First and foremost, I am not an expert on music or pretty much anything else here. I've never been trained in music theory or even had an extensive background in music. I've been listening to music just as long as any other person who has ever visited Mew before, but don't share the same passion they might. I have an understanding of what good music is, but I prefer sounds that are more directly appealing to my ears, as opposed to complex instrumentals or thought-provoking lyrics. So don't expect a critical discussion of the technical side to UNDER17's music, just some otaku raving about how cute it sounds. Furthermore, I am by no means fluent in Japanese. I have been studying at university for about 3 years and have been casually studying for about 4. I'm about N3 on a good day if that means anything. I made an attempt in some sections to translate lyrics, which will be appended, but likely are abundant with errors, so if you happen to find mistakes anywhere here, please let me know so I can fix them as soon as possible. Finally, some reservations. Now that I've completed a bulk of the research and I need to express some mild concern at discussing this somewhat poorly documented artist. The English Wikipedia is fairly scarce with information, and there isn't much to go off outside of the musical credits and links to Japanese interviews. I organized a lot of the data and did my best to distill and present it here in a manner which would make the most logical sense. However, since this likely is the most comprehensive dump of information in English about UNDER17 ever made, I feel obligated to be correct about it. Much like with my translation work and previous efforts researching Honda Toru, I will once again stress the importance of factual accuracy. I have cross-referenced much of the data included to best support my claims I made, so hopefully everything is in order. In addition to that, a lot of information is lost to time due to the nature of researching an old J-pop group that was never really given the time to be very popular. If there's any Akiba-pop or J-pop aficionados out there that find inaccuracies, please let me know so I can mend the errors. Now, without further ado, the retrospective. Denpa is a Japanese word referring to radio waves, or any other kind of radiation coming from electronic devices. Denpa became a slang term used to describe strange or eccentric individuals and was popularized during the final years of the Showa era, ending in 1989, coinciding with a decade of disillusionment for Japan as a whole. Denpa has been used to characterize people or groups who are seemingly on another wavelength, a term that came into more widespread use after the infamous Fukugawa serial murder incident in 1981.
覚醒剤を撃ち、通行人6人を次々と襲って2人を殺した男が人質を取って中華料理店に立てこもりました。7時間の籠城の末、川又郡司元被告は逮捕されました。この男は覚醒剤による心神耗弱と診断されました。覚醒剤と隣り合わせに潜む犯罪の恐ろしさを思い知らされた事件でした。
Where the perpetrator claimed to be influenced by the radio waves. The idea of being brainwashed by poisonous radio waves began to be referred to as doku denpa. Originally used in a more literal sense, the influence of denpa has cemented itself within the fringes of Japanese art, more often than not seen within otaku media, interestingly enough. Such influence is colloquially known as Denpa-kei, or Denpa style. One of the originators of the genre being the visual novel Shizuku, developed by Leaf in 1996, followed up by Kizuato in the same year, both of which introducing Denpa-kei to a wider otaku audience. These niche DOS games would not go under the radar, however, as they were largely influential on writers such as Urobuchi Gen, who began his career after being inspired by these two games. Urobuchi would later go on to incorporate such stylistic elements in his own visual novel, Saya no Uta, a few years later. Denpa-kei has been utilized in various other visual novels, such as Subarashi Kihibi and Cross Channel, along with many other mediums of entertainment, not just limited to visual novels. One of which being music. Denpa music appeared around the same time as early Denpa visual novels and is often characterized by a somewhat hypnotic trance that one would slip into upon hearing the voices of Japanese women singing nonsensical lyrics thickly covered in sugary otaku indulgence. These oppressively moe vocals and hyper-cute lyrics pay homage to various subcultures such as anime or video games, enjoyed by those often considered denpa by the general public. However, there are no rules to define a style of music, and no two artists will sound the same. Consequently, this leaves us with a wide range of musical styles that all are able to fall under the Denpa-kei umbrella, not specifically just moe denpa, since I suppose specific types of industrial electronic music or noise music can technically align itself within Denpa-kei in terms of thematic or aesthetic sensibilities. But for now, we will focus specifically on moe denpa, which is more directly related to the music of UNDER17, though this genre is still equally diverse and nuanced. More mainstream artists like the aforementioned Momoi Haruko or Toromi tend to align themselves more with a moe sound as opposed to other groups such as Avenue Project, 33 Turbo, or Odenpa Studio, who touch on slightly more controversial subject matter delivered with a more oppressive, fluffy tone. Denpa music is quite niche even within the sphere of otaku culture, and as such has become mostly relegated to direct distribution between fans and creators. It's quite similar to doujin music, doujin meaning art that is self-published. Both doujin and denpa music are not mutually exclusive, though it's difficult to distinguish the two since both have somewhat difficult groupings to pin down. For example, popular Toho artists Eosis and T Pazolite got their start in the doujin music scene and have produced denpa-inspired doujin music. Doujin and denpa circles are often seen at events such as Comic-Con and M3, as well as other smaller events selling their self-pressed CDs, usually sold by the creators themselves. In addition, there have recently been a few high-profile artists performing denpa music as well as denpa-inspired J-pop and anime songs produced. This is why it's more accurate to call Denpa an aesthetic or influence rather than a genre or even a subgenre. Due to the relatively small demographic of fans for this type of music, Denpa is usually characterized through lower production values and imperfect mastering, almost make it closer to a bedroom rock feel compared to commercial J-pop. However, the rough around the edges production is in line with many other doujin goods being sold at the aforementioned events, and I think it has its own charm. I find it curious how Denpa is often portrayed in media and is almost always tangentially related to the otaku subculture in some way. It seems that a certain subset of otaku adopted the aesthetic of Denpa-kei and reinterpreted it to frame a unique flavor of Denpa Otoko, or disillusioned men. This also happens to be the title of the first publication of social and otaku critic Honda Toru. Honda-san wrote Denpa Otoko as a direct response to the controversial reception of Densha Otoko and its ensuing popularity amongst Ryaju.
皆さんはよく秋葉原にいらっしゃるんですか？
週4日ぐらいです。ギャルゲーやフィギュアを見たり、イベントがある日はそっちに顔出したり。
ギャルゲー？
美少女系のゲームですね。実に萌えです。
萌え？
もう一度お願いします。
萌え？
Seeing as Densha Otoko attempted to emasculate the image of the modern otaku into this harmless young man who longs to be as normal as everyone else. Otaku like Honda viewed the popularity of the Densha Otoko drama to be appalling, as they felt they needed to realign themselves with the traditionally outlandish behavior of otaku. He wanted otaku to be unhinged and weird, not the pacified ambassadors for the globalized cool Japan agenda that was being pushed at the time. Honda-san was definitely not advocating for a new generation of Miyazaki Tsutomos. Rather, he simply wanted to reconstruct the ideal otaku image before the popular opinion began to shift. Within these thoughts, the image of Denpa Otoko emerged, the depiction of an otaku far removed from the well-groomed depictions on popular dramas and no longer used as comedic relief on variety shows, simply a person who was on a different wavelength. I believe Denpa-kei to be intrinsically tied to otaku culture due to their roots, otaku and Denpa subcultures deeply intertwined, both of which being byproducts of disillusionment. Denpa-kei emerged during the end of the Showa era, which was a period of rapid economic and technological advancement. 1980s Japan was a sight to behold, the bright lights of Tokyo shimmering to mask the foreboding collapse of the Neon Empire it had spent 3 decades building. That's when the bubble burst. The promised dream of being a salaryman and having a guaranteed lifelong employment had been lost to the past. Universities were becoming more competitive, and jobs were difficult to come by. Young men were crippled by the pressures of society that was becoming increasingly stratified and found themselves lost between the gaps. They retreated to their rooms and lost themselves within the fantasies of isolation, and otaku began turning to the idealized world of 2 dimensions. All the while, Denpa retroactively became a critique of the rapid industrialization of post-war Japan. The technological advancement of late Showa Japan proved to have ill effect on some who likely felt disconnected from their old way of living. They could hear the voices in the air and they were warning them of a bleak future. Alright, what the heck even is Akiba pop? Akiba-kei is a Japanese slang term deriving from Akiba from Akihabara and the suffix kei, indicating a particular lineage or style. It is used to refer to a specific brand of otaku who appear to spend a lot of time in Akihabara, which is widely known to be a center for modern Japanese visual culture, media primarily consisting of, but not limited to, Japanese animation, manga, video games, and idol music.
いらっしゃいませ。ポイントカードはお持ちでしょうか。
あいつの買い方すごいだろう。ある意味究極、値段を見ない。
羨ましいけど金大丈夫なんすか。
いやー、生活費削ってるみたいよ。
すげえ。
These otaku fit the classical image of what the Japanese media outlets of the early to mid-2000s depicted otaku as, contrary to the villainification during the decades prior to the turn of the century. This was due to Japan's somewhat controversial Cool Japan agenda, which pushed popular culture to the forefront of its national relations campaign in order to appeal to global cultures through their unique art. While beneficial to their global market, relations, and perception, many otaku took offense to this new agenda as they viewed it as a pacification of otaku culture. Something they were previously criticized for being now becomes sterilized and normalized. I cannot stress enough how this pacification of the otaku image was a necessary evil, regardless of how I or other otaku feel about it. Hardly a decade prior, the aforementioned Miyazaki Tsutomu had become the face of otaku across the nation and tainted the subculture as Denpa-otoko, disassociating men who are unable to distinguish their twisted fantasies from reality. Biased media coverage painted favorable conclusions and brought national attention to the dangers of otaku media. Housewives whispered on the streets how they couldn't believe their neighbor's son was watching Urusei Yatsuda and drawing pretty young girls in his school notebooks. Cool Japan attempted to reconstruct the troubled history of otaku media within Japan through sterilization. Consequently, the modern otaku image transformed and resulted in a harmless plaid shirt bandana wearing, slightly overweight otaku who spoke with slurred speech and wandered the streets of Akihabara, occasionally saving women on trains. Many social critics, such as the superfly artist Murakami Takahashi, have likened post-war Japan as having become emasculated. Murakami-san believes pop culture icons such as Sanrio's Hello Kitty have tainted the country in a permanently pink warm blanket, and the process shifting their focus away from the errors of the old by means of kawaii character goods. Taking Murakami-san's analysis further, we can conclude that the prevalence of moe and kawaii within media, especially otaku media, likely stems from a similar source. Akihabara has enjoyed its own unique subculture surrounding and is exemplified in Akiba-kei, a subset of the more general otaku culture, but retains a unique identity within the larger subculture. Institutions such as the Meido Kisa, maid cafe, underground idols, and other street performances were given a platform due to the cultivation of otaku culture in Akihabara. Within these developments emerged Akiba pop. While it could be considered a genre or subgenre, Akiba pop more generally refers to an aesthetic style of music in much the same way Akiba-kei does. In that sense, it's more accurate to say Akiba pop is Akiba-kei music. Akiba pop is a pop derivative subgenre with roots in Denpa music and drawing musical influence from the moe music of UNDER17. The term was coined by music group Mosaic Wave in the title of their first album released in October 2004. We love Akiba pop. The album was created to appeal specifically to Akiba-kei otaku with songs like which makes references to both various internet protocols, such as peer-to-peer, and jokes about censoring the radio version of the song, later making a profit on the uncensored single version. In addition, there are other songs with titles appealing to Akiba-kei otaku sensibilities such as Niji no Sekai de 2D Dabu, 2D Love in the Rainbow World, Moe Spiralu Akiba Tora, Moe Spiral Akiba Tora, and of course the titular We Love Akiba Pop. Mosaic Wave is considered to be the spiritual successor to UNDER17 by carrying the legacy of Moe's song and revolutionizing Akiba pop, as well as being one of the most prolific and popular music groups within the Denpa music scene. History. UNDER17, or in Japanese, UNDER17, shortened to Ansenbu, is a Japanese music duo consisting of singer Momoi Haruko and guitarist Koike Masaya, nicknamed Aniki, meaning big brother. The duo was officially founded around 2001 or 2002, although the pair had worked many times before in the late 90s under the name Polyphonic, though did not perform Moe song during this time. The band is known for its distinct, cute vocals thanks to the unique singing of vocalist Momoi Haruko, which itself was influenced by otaku-oriented anime and bishoujo games of the era. The group has been an influential force in Moe song and Denpa song, a category of music which focuses on cute female vocals and pop beats, catering to a niche otaku audience. However, it's more accurate to say UNDER17 falls under the Akiba pop genre, more so than Denpa. According to Haruko, the term Moe song was itself coined by UNDER17 on their second album. They boasted the label World Famous Moe Artist. The UNDER17 name is a tongue-in-cheek reference to eroge, which oftentimes features obviously high school-aged characters despite legally requiring all the characters in the game to be over 18. However, the game urges the player to acknowledge themselves and the characters within the game to be under 18, to express their pure heart untainted by the rest of the world. This is not too dissimilar to Inoue Kikuko and her claim to fame. When asked about her age, Inoue-san will always respond that she's eternally 17. Eien ni 17 sai desu, despite being much older now. Eroge can only be sold to people over the age of 18, but anyone could listen to the music of the game regardless. This all returns back to the eroge situation, where the quest for purity contradicts the player's urge to cream pie all those totally legal heroines in the game and get all those CGs. But even if you are 17 years old, you can purchase and listen to UNDER17's music. Noted on the Japanese Wikipedia page, around 2001 and 2002, when UNDER17 was gaining its footing within the otaku music scene, moe and moe song were relatively obscure terms, its usage only really relegated to small circles of otaku huddled together on online message board systems. However, in 2004, alongside the massive popularity of novel and television drama Densha Otoko, the term moe frequently ranked highly on surveys for this month's popular words in Japan. As such, the term moe song became widely associated with the style of music UNDER17 was performing, as well as inspiring others to perform similar types of music. During their existence, the band produced over 20 singles and 3 compilation albums, and their music was featured in opening and ending sequences in animated TV series such as Popotan, Dear S, and Genshiken. The 3 compilation albums being the definitive experience and easiest starting point for those new to UNDER17, since they collect all the singles released into 3 distinct locations. The 3rd compilation album also includes a high-quality recording of their last iconic moment on stage in 2004, as well as karaoke versions for all their music. One of the most important projects for UNDER17 in the early days of composing music for bishoujo games was their work on Popotan. This PC game was released in Japan on December 12, 2002, and had a few important staff members that would go on to be legends within the realm of otaku media. The first of which being character designer Puyo Puyo Rock, also known as Watanabe Akio, known for his work on the Monogatari series and the game Grisaya no Kajitsu. However, he previously had worked with the UNDER17 duo prior to dubbing themselves as such, with the anime series The Soul Taker and the spin-off Nurse Witch Komugi-chan. Alongside UNDER17 in the musical credits, now legendary Denpa singer Toromi performs the insert song entitled Mitan no Maho de Pon. As well as is the seiyuu for me on the original 18+ PC release of the game. Interestingly enough, Momoi Haruko performs as Mi seiyuu on the all-ages version of the game on PS2, released in early 2004. Another important cast member is seiyuu Kadowaki Mae, whom you might recognize as the voice of Eliasville van Eisenberg in a little-known series called Fate Stay Night. Her role as Mare for Popotan was actually her second role as a seiyuu for a major character in a Bishoujo game, the first being Asagiri Aiko in Prism Palette, developed by Broccoli in 2001. She would have the role as Ilya in Dean's anime adaptation of Fate Stay Night released in 2006, later reprising her role in the all-ages Realta Nua version of Stay Night released in April of 2007. Besides the important cast behind Popotan, the opening movie features the source of the now iconic loopable animation used in the ever-popular Caramel Dansen Speedy Cake remix video. On September 27, 2004, UNDER17 announced its breakup via a handwritten letter posted on their website. This came as a shock to many fans, as the band had been rapidly gaining popularity and only just began touring for the first time. Within the duo, there had been a conflict of interest regarding the future of the duo and the style of music they would be producing. Based on interviews I had read from Momoi-san in the Moe Manifesto, written by Patrick W. Galbraith, she seems to imply that she was beginning to feel the mass-produced sensation of mainstream music creeping into their work, which defeated the purpose of the group. She also cites not sharing the same artistic vision as guitarist Koike-san, since he wanted to try experimenting more outside Akiba pop and Denpa subgenres. Haruko-san explains in the interview how she is very dedicated to preserving the importance of having genuine moe feelings and felt this ideal would be tarnished on their current path. The band remained together briefly to finish their first and final tour, culminating in the emotional last performance on November 20th, 2004 in Yokohama Blitz. The last song performed was Tenbatsu Angel Rabi, which featured an emotional double encore, and is included as the last track on their third and final compilation album, Soshite Densetsu e, the title of the album meaning "and so onwards to legend." The band reunited for one song on August 31st, 2008 during Animelo Summer Live. They performed Tenbatsu Angel Rabi with the help of Mosaic Wave members. This performance is significant in that Mosaic Wave is another Akihabara-based moe song group that was likely influenced by the music of UNDER17 and other early Akiba-kei groups. Mosaic Wave has carried on the legacy of Akiba-kei and moe music and are still producing music to this day. Members. Momoi Haruko. Momoi Haruko was born December 14, 1977 in Tokyo, Japan, and is a prominent seiyuu, songwriter, and artist. She is called Haruko by fans, ironic since the Japanese pronunciation of this name sounds exactly like Haruko, a nickname she gave herself which is inspired by HAL 9000, the computer in the film 2001: A Space Odyssey. Since beginning her career in the late 90s, she became an important figure within the Japanese idol scene and representative of the niche otaku subculture during the time, having since been appropriately called the Queen of Akihabara. With her own understanding of moe and her interest in games and computers, much of Momoi-san's lyrics feature double meanings, which only the most hardcore fans can catch. Momoi-san attended Tokyo Metropolitan Yoyogi High School. She has gone on record to note how she was often bullied in high school due to having unusual interests that other girls did not have. She enjoyed playing Bishoujo games, literally pretty girl games, watching anime, and especially enjoyed playing video games. During this time, she received a computer and started a personal blog, which is still around today in all its 90s glory. In an interview with Patrick W. Galbraith in the Moe Manifesto, she explains how dial internet in the 1990s was a godsend to me. She eventually gained recognition online and was offered a job to write for the magazine Weekly ASCII. In 1996, Momoi-san began performing live in Akihabara, a popular gathering place in Tokyo for otaku, and had been visiting the electric town since she was in grade school. She had established a small following in Akihabara, performing in underground live concerts as seen in the 1997 clip of her single Gura Gura, where she paraded around Akiba Strip in the infamous Nintendo Power Glove and referencing various video games within the lyrics. much of her early music was influenced by Akihabara pop culture. Momoi-san explains how the sound was born from her interest in video games and computers. This explains her first single, Denno Shoujo Bachiarianko, or Computer Girl Virtualian. Released in 1997, gives off a lovely image of late 1990s futuristic idealism. Haruko was instrumental in the popularization of guerrilla lives, a term used to describe a quickly formed live performance on the streets of Akihabara, as well as is responsible for starting the underground idol movement. Prior to this, idols were restricted to professional recruiting on TV or signed under a recording label. However, Momoi-san found success in her grassroots effort on the streets of Akihabara, an otaku making Akiba-kei for otaku. Without her influence, idol culture of Akiba and the popularity of larger groups like Akihabara's own AKB48 would not have been possible. Her first single was Mail Me, which was featured in the 2007 Shion Sono film Suicide Club, Jisatsu Sakuru, and soon began performing theme songs for adult visual novels around 2000 with Omakase, Angel Trouble, and Balder Bullet. During her time performing with Koike-san, Momoi-san curiously appears with glasses only when performing with UNDER17. Under normal circumstances, she doesn't need glasses. However, she wears them not because she has bad eyesight, but to express that she sees things from the same point of view as otaku. This harkens back to the classical image of the slightly overweight, plaid shirt tucked in, glasses glinting, bandana wearing otaku prowling the streets of Akihabara, with a bag full of bishoujo goods in each hand. By wearing the glasses, Momoi was channeling the then contemporary image of the Akiba-kei otaku, and quite literally seeing the world through their lens. At the final performance at Yokohama Blitz, where they announced their breakup, she left her glasses on the stage and left. Later, during their surprise comeback at Animelo Summer Live 2008, Koike appeared on stage and Momoi received the glasses from Koike-san and wore them, much to the joy of fans. After the success of her singing career, Momoi-san was offered a role in the 2001 anime series The Soul Taker and the eventual spin-off Nurse Witch Komugi-chan in 2002, the latter of which received a number of vocal albums showcasing Haruko's singing talents. Komugi-chan is also significant due to the influence of otaku culture and Akiba-kei sensibilities within its aesthetic. It parodied anime genre conventions, poked fun at other popular series, and incorporated internet culture that only the most dedicated image board users would understand. It even included a mecha version of the Tokyo Big Sight as a boss battle, notable for being the convention center where the biannual comic market is held. However, quite possibly the most important part about Nurse Witch Komugi-chan was not the show itself, but Komugi's Toasty Kongari Nurse Station, which was the anime's radio show.
こんにちは、中原小麦です。みんな元気？とうとう始まっちゃいました。インターネットラジオですよ。みんな聞こえてますか？聞こえてなかったら、これを機会に回線を太くしてみようなんてね。ってなわけで、そろそろ言っときますか。中原小麦のこんがりナースステーション。
This was the world's first anime internet radio program. While hardly a topic of interest for most non-Japanese fans due to the language barrier and time zone differences, radio programming is a critical part of cultivating a fan base around both the show and the seiyuu, and consequently was instrumental in the development of the seiyuu otaku scene. These short programs are personality driven by the main cast and generally focus on discussing events of the show, reading fan mail, and answering questions. Various corners are allocated for the program which feature distinct topics or structure. Being someone who started as an internet blogger and was interested in seiyuu years before this was possible, Momoi Haruko was the perfect candidate to pioneer this development. This was also around the same time she began collaborating with Koike Masaya to form UNDER17. Momoi Haruko also has many roles as a seiyuu in anime during the early 2000s. Similar to her experience with the visual novels, she also performed many opening songs for anime during this time. Some of her major roles in anime include, but are not limited to, Nakahara Komugi from Nurse Witch Komugi-chan, Sukune from Majoko Sukune-chan, Mi from Popotan, the anime, Seto-san from Seto no Hanayome, Akiha Rumiho from Steins Gate, and Minazuki Chika from Aiori Aoshi. Besides Nakahara Komugi, her role as Akiha Rumiho is notable due to that character being instrumental in the creation of Akihabara as a center for otaku culture according to the canon of Steins Gate. In addition to her prolific musical and seiyuu career, she has published an autobiography in 2007 entitled Akihaba Love, reflecting her personal career, the experiences she's had, and the people that helped her along the way. This was published around the same time she was questioning her own value of moe, and is evident in her more mature image at the time, such as the role as San in Seto no Haneyome and her Wonder Momoi album. This is due to her increasing agitation and resentment towards the idea of making moe song, fueled by corporate agenda and calculated marketing, ultimately making each nya and oni-chan buzzword feeling less genuine. As such, she started to experiment further with a more mature style as she grew older. However, traveling to the United States and Germany for anime conventions rekindled her passion for moe as she gained a newfound appreciation of it through seeing the love expressed by those abroad. At F Anime Con 2009, she explains her experience in an interview with Tomoaki Hirai from tono.net. Even with a language barrier, I felt I could communicate from the heart by singing my songs. Also, in Japan, otaku are looked down upon, but here in America, to perform in front of so many like-minded people because I am one, I feel happy that I am an otaku. Laughs. In 2007, she returned to her roots, which was announced in the DVD release Haruko Update. Momoi-san is still currently involved in otaku-related media industries, though it appears she has not received a major role as a seiyuu recently. According to an Anime News Network article from 2009, she has her own record label called Akiba Love Records and is collaborating with Okui Masami, who is known for her theme song performances in Diji Share Shoujo Kakume Utena, Akihabara Denno Gumi, and Slayers. She has also collaborated with a number of other high-profile artists, such as the group Perfume, Chiyomaru Shikura, Hironobu Kageyama, and Manzo. In addition to her anime-related music performances and composing, she has had a prolific career continuing work in the Bishoujo game industry, even after the end of UNDER17. She is credited mostly as composer, composition, or writes the lyrics of the opening or ending tracks. Her most recent credit being Frontwing's eroge Momoiro Closet, about a lewd female otaku. Another important credit within the scene is providing an insert song for the infamous anime and game School Days entitled Let Me Love You from 2005, uncharacteristically melodramatic for her style at the time, though not too divergent from some of the more ballad-style songs from later UNDER17 releases. While still performing lives, I suspect she has begun shifting her work more to the production side of things now, though she has not ended her prolific career active in the Japanese music scene. Momoi Haruko is one of my favorite seiyuu and my favorite Japanese pop singer. I've enjoyed her extensive discography through the various phases of her career, as well as her performances within the anime she has been cast in. Many people are likely not too fond of her due to her polarizing, high-pitched voice, but I find it very charming, and it's hard to explain concisely why that is. Maybe it's just my longing for an Imoto character to call me Oni-chan in the morning, or perhaps it's something deeper than that. The expressiveness of her singing, range of vocal ability, energy of her performances, and dedication to her work, regardless of the context, makes Momoi-san someone to admire. She hasn't gotten many big roles in anime, and her music doesn't seem to be topping any Oricon charts, but there always seems to be a unique energy behind it all. This is because I feel that Momoi-san is a person who seems to have a better understanding of moe than anyone else. She grew up looking at idols like Mizuno Aoi and yearning for the opportunity to one day work within the industry. She wrote on her blog during high school about these things because she didn't have anyone else to discuss them with. But in a twist of fate, she became an idol herself. Her roots are in Akihabara and she enjoys otaku media just as much as us fans do. Best of wishes for Momoi-san and her continuing endeavors. Koike Masaya. Koike Masaya is a sunglasses-clad Japanese guitarist lovingly called Aniki, or brother, by fans. He previously performed with Under17 alongside Momoi Haruko and has been a member of Ultra Prism since 2009. In addition to these groups, he has performed as a guitarist for the popular Akiba-kei group Mosaic Wave alongside vocalist Miko and keyboardist Susumu Kayamori, as well as is part of the Forever group, which mainly performs music for anime such as Mamotte Lollipop or Canvas 2 Niji Iro no Sketch. As opposed to Momoi Haruko, not much is known about Koike-san's past life, though his list of musical credits can be used to narrate his career path over the past few decades. Koike-san was traditionally instructed in music growing up playing the piano. Unfortunately, his instructor was very strict, and he was not allowed the creative freedom to play what he wanted, and subsequently started to grow disinterested in music as a whole. However, in high school he had become a fan of the American rock band Kiss, and took up playing the guitar. Though originally influenced by heavy metal, he would later cite guitarists such as Carlos Santana and Jeff Page to be his major inspirations. He soon reignited an interest in music and would practice at any free moment he had, even before school. Koike-san had been described as a very serious person and often is pictured with a stern expression on his face, but many collaborators have explained how he is fundamentally a considerate person who cares deeply about his art and his partners. That said, he has also enjoyed assuming the role as a flamboyant guitarist who wears sunglasses and looks cool every second he's on stage. Koike-san's first credit is as a tape op on the 1987 album entitled Chie Bando Neon, which is a Latin-inspired tango album produced by an old Japanese staff, interestingly enough.
Eche amigo no más, eche me llene hasta el bar de la copa de champán, que esta noche de farra y de alegría, el dolor que hay en mi alma.
For those that were unaware like I was, a tape op refers to the secondary sound engineer, though this is usually a fancy word for an errand boy, since they act as an apprentice and carry out menial tasks like fetching tea and snacks for the other staff. He didn't appear credited as anything as Koike Masaya until 2001 with the anime The Soul Taker, credited for musical arrangement of the image song I Know Medicine alongside Momoi Haruko, though not yet as Under17. But we're missing a large chunk of history that could only be discerned through information on the Japanese Wikipedia page. During the period roughly between 1987 and 97, Koike-san worked in TV production doing voice effects and audio mixing. But in 86, he became acquainted with Watanabe Koji, who was working on a PlayStation game at the time, and was introduced to Momoi Haruko because of him. As a result, the two collaborated on Momoi-san's 1997 single, Gura Gura, where Koike-san was credited as arrangement, and later performed guitar for Mail Me. It's likely he had been working in or had close acquaintances with the Japanese music scene during the time before this, but not much can be found to support this theory. The first major single released independently as Under17 was Extensions in 2003, being the ending song for the Dreamcast game Majo no Ochakai, after which he performed alongside Haruko for a number of other singles throughout the early 2000s, culminating in the best of compilation albums of their work. Following the breakup of Under17 in 2004, Koike-san continued to work closely in the general anime sphere of music. In 2006, he is credited as a writer for First Kiss, which is the second song of the single Papin ha to wa Hitotsu dake for the anime Mamotte Lollipop. A number of small credits are tied to him throughout the rest of the 2000s, curiously all related to Denpa artists, such as collaborating with Mosaic Wave in 2009 for a Vocaloid album, then Nomiko in 2009, followed by Ultra Prism in 2011. While it's not fair to draw conclusions simply based on this, it seems that Koike-san had a passion for making Denpa and Moe music, evident in his discography and songwriting credits, far after the breakup of Under17. The interesting thing about Ultra Prism was that it appeared to be similar in style to Under17, in that it had Koike-san backing the female vocalist Tsukimiya Usagi. While it doesn't seem that Ultra Prism reached the same heights as his old unit, the new group worked on a few anime songs as well as seem to have been active as late as 2020, and I will touch on their more recent live performance in a later section since it's relevant. In 2010, Ultra Prism did a collaboration album with Denpa-gumi Inc., whom Koike-san would later produce music for. I would imagine this was the first time he became acquainted with the group, as he would start producing music for Denpa-gumi in 2015 during the height of their popularity. Koike-san's most recent credits are as musical performance associated with Denpa-kei Inc. In 2016, they released a best-of compilation called WWD Best Good Denpa. Additionally, he was credited for composition on their 2019 album, Ware Ware wa Denpa-kei Inc. da. Furthermore, Koike-san is still credited as composer/arranger on music released as recent as Mosaic Wave's Akiba Pop 2 scripter, Mosaic Wave Game Song Collection, and other 2019 music from various artists. Returning to Denpa-kei Inc., this group is significant because they marked an interesting turn in the modern Denpa musical scene, since it introduced more explicit multi-idol influence a la AKB48 or her sister groups. This is opposed to the more prevalent single vocalist performance of Doujin Denpa music. In that sense, Denpa-kei Inc. seem to be trying to parallel the evolution of Japan's idol industry, moving away from the singular focus of the TV idols of old and instead trying to appeal to as many people as possible with a large unit. As mentioned previously, most Denpa had previously been produced and released for Comiket, M3, or similar events, but was now appearing to have evolved to be more commercially viable. Albums had once been put together with low production quality on shoestring budgets and often only featured album art from fellow doujin artists, or self-drawn in the case of Toromi. But Denpa-kei Inc. appeared to have a much higher production budget with the goal of appealing to both hardcore Denpa and idol music fans alike. I personally enjoyed a few of their songs, but ultimately felt as if it was a bit too derivative from the bedroom rock feel I had grown accustomed to with groups like Odenpa Studio and the like. UNDER17 was certainly a larger group with more commercial backing, so I guess that shows my bias here a bit. However, I've always felt that groups like UNDER17 and Mosaic Wave carry the Denpa spirit with them regardless of how popular they get, ultimately making their music carry the same amateur mid-2000s Akiba pop energy of the early days throughout the entirety of their careers. Not much else could be discerned from this elusive Denpa-loving man. The breakup. Unfortunately, the success of UNDER17 was short-lived. The group disbanded on September 27, 2004 via a handwritten letter posted on their website. This came as a shock to many fans, as the band had been rapidly gaining popularity and only just began touring for the first time. But to understand why this happened, we need to look a bit closer into the ideology of Momoi Haruko and the ballooning popularity of the otaku subculture at the time. Momoi-san had once asked Watanabe Akio, character designer for Nurse Witch Komugi-chan and Bakemonogatari, among others, how he designed such cute pictures. Watanabe-san explains, "It's because I want to become Komugi-chan." Upon reflection, Momoi-san concluded that moe isn't bound to being male or female, it's almost like a third gender. Her feelings were reinforced as she explains how her friend Nagashima Jienotsu Yuichiro, a professional fighter, enjoys cosplay and crossplay alike. Not because he wants to cross-dress, but because he wants to become that character. This is similar to how there are many male fans of Toho Project who crossplay out of their genuine love for a certain character, regardless of their gender. One of the reasons why Toho is so special is because how much of the personality of each character can be interpreted by the fans, and consequently, fans form closer connections to these characters because of how much time they spend thinking about them. The love for these characters transcends gender. In addition, female fans can love female characters just as much as male fans do. She continues to explain how moe might stem from a desire to return to childhood. No matter who you are, the image of a carefree child playing in the backyard is appealing. The freedom and innocence of it is intoxicating. Many moe characters tend to be very young, as social critic Honda Todo rationalized. Being young makes them vulnerable, which inspires us to protect and nurture them. The character needs support, love, or care, even if she is strong and independent. If she is not all that vulnerable, then she can live on her own. It would be hard to approach such a perfect being. Being vulnerable means you need others, and these characters can't survive without support. Moe is androgynous and asexual. It's very pure, but also bittersweet, like Hatsukoi, first love. The fragile heart of moe cannot be handled without the most delicate touch of unadulterated love. Moe is transcendent in culture. Many people like to introduce moe as a weird Japanese thing, but that is simply because we don't have a word to describe the same feelings as succinctly. Despite dubbing themselves as the world-famous Moe Artist, I don't think Momoi-san or Koike-san truly understood what they were doing and the importance of their work at the time. It wasn't until much later, after going through an identity crisis, that Momoi-san truly understood the weight of Moe. Around 2004, during the height of Under-17's popularity, she was starting to feel that her heart wasn't at all there anymore. This internal turmoil was explained in her interview with Patrick W. Galbraith in the Moe Manifesto. PG, do you still consider your songs to be about Moe? MH, that's a real dilemma for me. One of the reasons I disbanded Under-17 was because I didn't want to reproduce a patterned Moe formula. She elaborates on what she means by formula in the following response. Moe is a very spiritual thing. It isn't just some pattern. There was a time when I was asked to put in keywords like oni-chan or nya into my music, but I didn't like it. Someone was making a calculated business decision to put those words into a song to trigger a response in otaku. It's the same with anime specifically designed to trigger moe. It seems forced and lacking in soul. I'm not interested in the business side of things. Returning to her present feelings about moe, explained previously, Momoi-san was starting to understand the implications of wielding such a word, and it should not be used haphazardly. The influence of business and money-making schemes to swindle otaku out of their pocket change in exchange for a paper-thin visage of moe became nauseating. The pure-hearted nature of moe was being threatened. There arose a conflict of interest regarding the future of the duo and the style of music they would produce. Momoi-san's ideals would persevere, however, as despite the disbanding of the group, she managed to preserve her own image of moe. She felt the mass-produced sensation of mainstream music was creeping into their work, which defeated the purpose of the group. She also cites not sharing the same artistic vision as guitarist Koike-san, since he wanted to try experimenting more outside the Akiba pop and Denpa subgenres. Momoi-san explains in this interview how she is very dedicated to preserving the importance of having genuine moe feelings and feels this ideal would be tarnished on their current trajectory. In the years that followed, Momoi Haruko continued performing and producing music within the general Akiba pop and anime music sphere. However, as mentioned previously, she went through a bit of an identity crisis as she questioned the viability of moe and her style of music. This occurred during the months leading up to 2007, which she experimented with more derivative styles, as noted in her album Wonder Momoi and various anime roles she had at the time. However, what made her regain her faith in moe was her time spent abroad. After performing overseas at Anime Expo in the US and Konichi in Germany, the transcendental nature of moe became more apparent. These gaijin in America and Germany understood the same feelings and had the same passion as Japanese people felt towards anime, manga, and games. The worldwide moe artist suddenly found herself realizing that she might in fact be world famous after all, and the feeling she had spent languishing over could be understood despite her being in an unfamiliar place. Moe is not bound by country borders, culture, language barriers, or gender roles. It's a universal feeling that some people will deny and others will embrace. Moe does not discriminate, and it won't hurt you. All it asks is for a pure-hearted yearning for something beautiful. After this revelation, Momoi Haruko returned to Japan, elated, high off her fun times abroad with a rejuvenated sense of excitement for moe. This is expressed in the aforementioned Haruko update in 2007, as well as a public statement issued towards Western fans upon returning to Japan. Then the following year, on August 31st, 2008, Under-17 reunited once again for Animelo Summer Live, where they performed Tenbatsu, Angel Dabi, with the members of Mosaic Wave. In addition to this, Momoi-san and Koike-san briefly reunited on March 19th, 2020 at KT Zepp Yokohama to perform at the event Susume Moe Denpa Shonen Daifukatsusai 2020 Sagi Sarishi Moe o Motomete, which was a collaborative event with Under-17 and Ultra Prism. In addition to her internal turmoil regarding her perception of the cold-hearted, business-driven nature of the music industry, Momoi-san also cites how their immense popularity and many tours had started to take a strain mentally and physically on the two. I would imagine her vocal abilities were starting to strain as she would have had to continuously sing in a high-pitched voice for long periods of time. Even if her voice was already pitched, performing at many live events like Kamike and other smaller venues did not prepare them for the difficulties of a national tour. While the majority of their music was released during a short span of about 2 years, their legacy would leave a lasting impression on the world of moe song. Discography discussion. Now that we've taken a look at the history of Under17, the Denpa and Akiba pop music scene, as well as a bit on the landscape of otaku culture at the time, let's get into the music itself, shall we? When it comes to pop music, and especially Japanese pop music, labels tend to flood the market with singles with the goal of low prices for high rankings on the Oricon charts and whatnot. Unfortunately, this means a lot of music in a lot of places. Also, a lot of singles tend to have that one titular song, which the single is named after, usually the song with the most effort or marketing behind it. The rest of the songs will just fall in line behind it, though this doesn't necessarily indicate their quality. In addition, most J-pop singles feature karaoke or instrumental tracks intended for use for fans to sing at karaoke with the included linear notes or simply to enjoy the instrumentals on their own. Luckily, there are a lot of best-of compilations available for popular artists and essentially collect the titular song of every released single and put them into one package. Under17 released a lot of singles despite having a short run, and a lot of the singles themselves are unaccounted for or have never been uploaded online. Fortunately, all the major singles you want to hear have been collected into these Under17 best albums, hence why I'm going to be focusing on the 3 compilation albums in my discussion. Lastly, I'm not going to discuss all the songs in each album because that would take way too long. Instead, I'm going to give a general overview of each compilation album and pick a few songs to discuss the history of and why I like them a lot and why they might be important. Under17 Best 1 Bishoujo Game Song ni Aiyo. Bishoujo Game Song ni Aiyo translates to mean something along the lines of express your love of Bishoujo games or love towards Bishoujo games. This CD was published by Lantis and released on December 3rd, 2003 and contains 13 songs. I initially wasn't too keen about this album, but after sitting myself down and listening to it to completion one day, I realized it might be my favorite of the 3. This album primarily consists of Bishoujo game opening and ending songs as indicated by the title. The cover artwork of the first album mimics that of a window box packaging for action figures or Figma, in that Koike-san and Momoi-san are placed within the plastic bedding and their accessories are beside them. I really like this artwork since it is the type of window box packaging many figure otaku would likely be intimately familiar with, not just Bishoujo figures in crane games, but also action figures for tokusatsu programs, as well as American comic book heroes. I personally like to think each album had colors on the cover artwork to best reflect the feelings and aesthetic of the music within. In this case, the vibrant pink and purple reflect the playful feminine innocence of the traditional moe aesthetic, which juxtaposes to the action figure window box packaging that we see here, more in line with that of a prize figure. Number 2, Ichigo Go Go Jumbo Parfait Edition. Strawberry Go Go Jumbo Parfait Edition. I will admit I am addicted to the sweet strawberry flavor of this moe song. It opens with Momoi-san chanting the titular lyrics, Ichigo Go Go, 3 times, and I find myself singing along before I even know it. The song itself is the theme song for the adult PC game Ichigo Da, developed by Witch and released in 2001, and is a fan disc to Milky Way. Fan discs are short fan servicey games put together by developers, usually released at reduced prices or on a limited scale, and are for fans to get bonus content and sometimes extra H scenes for the games they enjoy. Essentially, OVA for Bishoujo games. Since this game was geared towards adults, Momoi-san initially had difficulties discussing it as part of her professional work. This is important to note because it is the second single they released that was used in a Bishoujo game. Following this collaboration, Under17 would continue to work with Witch for a number of other games including Milky Way 2, Surupetta, and Fake, later compiling these songs into 2 compilation albums called Under17 Meets Witch. Besides the significance of the background, it's just a fun song. Based on my mediocre Japanese and having listened to it about 100 times, I've concluded that the song is about a tsundere, with lyrics like It's not as cute of a song in meaning as it appears, nor is it as upbeat, but it's very catchy, and about this unusual relationship between someone who loves someone so much they want to pick on them, like a tsundere, explaining how they want to mess with their love interests precisely because they're cute. Number 5. Uwaki shitemo yo fickle mix. This is an ending for the hentai OVA called Milky Way from 2003. UNDER17 began working with Bishoujo game developer Witch in 2001 with the game Alive Renewal, which was a voiced version of the same game released in 1999. It seems they were not credited as UNDER17 for the opening movie on VNDB despite making the song Alive, and released together on UNDER17 Meets Witch collection, and is credited on the Japanese Wikipedia page. It could possibly be that this was never in the VNDB site's database, or just nobody looked into it in the first place, but I digress. Returning to Witch, they had a series of games called Milky Way, which began releasing in 2000. It's interesting to note that, while commonplace at the time, Milky Way shares characters with Alive, as well as its parent story for the aforementioned Ichigo Da. If you ask me, Milky Way looks like a ripoff, or at least an imitator, of Piakere e Yokoso, which was another popular series of adult games released around the same time that also focuses on slice-of-life experiences with cute girls in a cafe. It wasn't until mid-2002 that Witch would release Milky Way 2, and UNDER17 would perform the music for it, as well as a spin-off, Milky Way 2.5. Unfortunately, the group would not return for Milky Way 3, as the game was released in 2005 after UNDER17 disbanded, and would also be the last game published and developed by Witch. However, we're focusing on the 2-episode pornographic OVA released in 2003, simply titled Milky Way, produced by Lemon Heart. The music was performed by Mobo, who is often credited alongside UNDER17, such as in the OVA for Tenbatsu Angel Rabi. I believe they were responsible for providing additional instrumentals in the recordings, such as piano and extra guitars. The song itself, Uwaki shitemo yo, translates to mean, "You can cheat on me too," or "fickleness is fine too," and reflects in the lyrics. It's my interpretation that this song is from the perspective of a girl who is in love with a mega playboy and is popular with women. So the girl, or girls, are expressing their mixed feelings about how they can't stop loving him despite his infidelity. This is reflected in lines like, "You only live once, so enjoy life as a man. Jinsei wa ichido kiri otoko naratta no shinde ya." Though to be honest, I could be completely off base because I'm not familiar with the games. As for the song itself, it's very fun. It features some electronica-influenced instrumentals and feels very groovy, and blends well with the catchy lyrics. It features some characteristically repetitive but nevertheless mind worms that UNDER17 seems to incorporate oftentimes in the choruses, with the lines, You can either see this repetition as lazy, or you can see it as denpa. I personally think it's the latter because these lines are oftentimes nonsensical or have questionable meanings, but is framed as a pop chorus that urges you to sing along about how infidelity is okay is similar to the chorus of the opening to DRS, where you find yourself singing, "I'm your slave." This all harkens back to the reoccurring theme within Momoi Haruko's music, where she puts multiple meanings into her songs, and the Denpa song idea of presenting darker themes painted over pink to veil their true depth. Even still, I sing along about how fickleness is alright with me. 13. Kotae. Kotae, translating to mean answer or response, is the ending song to the aforementioned eroge Popotan, released in late 2002. The song is one of the first major examples of the range of Momoi-san's vocals, not simply limited to high-pitched, emoto character-type vocals. The track is more melodramatic, introspective, and is what I consider one of the ballad tracks put out by UNDER17. I will touch on a few others in a bit, but generally speaking, these tracks tend to be longer and feature Momoi-san singing without pitching her voice, and almost always feature Koike-san being the sole instrumentalist. But I guess this style is par for the course for ending songs in Bishoujo games, especially around this era, as they tended to be more mellow compared to the exciting opening song. This is because the OP was designed to get you excited to play the game and set the mood for the subsequent 20+ hour experience, while the ED is a time when you can read the credits and reflect on your experience now that it's over. Compared to a film or anime episode, Bishoujo games are stupidly long and have the need for a moment of introspection, not too dissimilar to listening to the credits of a JRPG after the 40+ hour journey. UNDER17 Best 2 萌えソングをきわめるぞ. Moe song at its best. The mice have overrun this one. RGB, gaming mice, or rats in the walls, I cannot say. However, this album has always been the one I find hard to return to personally. A year or so ago, I sat myself down and listened to the entirety of this album to try and learn and love it, and ended up finding some tracks here that were buried under the pile of optical mice, but I still can't love it as much as their other works. There's a lot of great tracks here, but there is a shift midway through the album that makes me lose interest. That said, the suspicious amount of mouse-themed songs was the result of the 2003 television anime Mouse, which featured opening, ending, and image songs performed by UNDER17, which would be their first major anime project. Continuing on with my discussion of aesthetics of each album, we have a primarily pink album cover this time and some flashy branding one might describe as gaudy. Once again, both Koike-san and Momoi-san are featured wearing the same iconic stage costumes as the first album, all within the context of packaging for action figures or Bishoujo figures. The design features the words Best Album 2 3 times in different fonts each time, which is just a poor design decision by anyone's standards, honestly. Also, for some reason, the varsity font, or some variation of it, is used when writing UNDER17, which seems a bit unusual, but I digress. The obi advertises UNDER17 as world famous moe artist, as well as underneath explaining, "Suteki na o uta ga takusan wa iteru yo," or "there are many lovely songs here." Generally speaking, this album looks appealing, albeit with a few questionable design choices. But overall, I enjoy the poppy feel overabundance of flashy pink and sparkles, which accurately convey the stylistic through line for the following tracks. Number 1. Shinobi, I no Himitsu. The first song off this album starts things off great with a very catchy electronica-influenced pop song called Shinobi I no Himitsu, or Shinobi, The Secret Love. This song is the opening song for the adult PC game Shinobi Chiku Hato, released in 2003 by the wonderfully named company Kiss Next Team Bottomless. Child company of Kiss Next. The group also performed the ending song Samishiku Naimon, or Don't Be Lonely. The game has everything an early 2000s ero gamer could ever want. We got a story of our protagonist entering a new mysterious school, and a harem of girls with VNDV tags including Kunoichi Heroine, Robot Heroine, Loli Heroine, and yes, even a cat girl heroine. Not much else is known about the game, since only one user named rated it a 9 a few years back, but I suppose off his metrics, it's not as good as JK to Ok Heidan, Akubuta Oni ni Ryugaku Sareta Seiju Gakuen. Before learning the origins of this game, it took me over a year and a dozen more listens to realize that Shinobi was supposed to be a play on Shinobi. This is one of the many examples of UNDER17's wordplay used within their lyrics. Not all of it is playful, but here's a fun example of it. The rest of the song is very enjoyable to listen to and served as a great opening song to the album. The lively performance and poppy vocals gets you excited and perfectly sets the tone for the rest of the songs on this album. Mouse Chew Mouse.
Mouse, chew, mouse. Mouse, chew, mouse. おしゃれ泥棒に恋泥棒いろいろいるけどあなたはやっぱ最高よ世界一よ
I figured it was important to discuss the song, regardless of how I felt about it, since above else, it's significant for being the first major anime project for UNDER17, as noted previously. I specify major because a few months prior they worked on the aforementioned 2003 adult OVA Milky Way with the song Kimochi Tomaranai Nai and Uwakishite mo Eiyo. The group had previously worked on the eroge Milky Way 2 released in 2002, and would later also provide music for Milky Way 2.5 in 2004. Returning to Mouse, it was drawn by Itaba Hiroshi and written by Akahori Satoru. You might recognize Akahori-sensei from his other writing credits including NG Knight Ramune and 40, Saber Marionette J, Cyber Team in Akihabara, and Kashimashi Girl Meets Girl. I haven't seen Mouse, but it appears to be something between a buddy cop or classy cat burglar story with extreme ecchi, and my best guess is Bubblegum Crisis with lots of fan service. The song itself is not my cup of tea. Listening to it earlier today reminded me of why. It is too different from the typical Under17 sound. The song itself is very strong stylistically, but I don't like the style. It uses horns to raise the cinematic sound of the song to better fit with the stylistic thief aesthetic of the anime. But I personally don't like the sound, as not only does it not feel at home with the rest of their discography, but something about the horns and bass line don't appeal to me. Moreover, this song isn't really moe per se, so it feels off in that regard too. That said, there are still a few reminders here and there that indicate Momoi-san was indeed performing the song. I guess it's not a terrible song, but it definitely is one of my least favorite Under17 songs and is not representative of their usual sound at all. Number 8. Popotan Hatake de Tsukamaete. Popotan is a nonsensical word which is a playful anagram of the Japanese word tanpopo, meaning dandelions, a prominent visual motif in the series. Full title, Popotan Hatake de Tsukamaete, translates to mean something along the lines of catching popotan in the fields. While performing the opening and ending sequences to the original PC game, Under17 returned to compose a new song for the television anime released in 2002, which is the song here. It's a very catchy song both in the lyrics and the sound, and I quickly find myself singing along to the opening verse like an idiot even when walking around campus.
I love you. My darling. Me, help me.
I love the chorus for a number of reasons. Not only is it catchy as heck and somewhat playful, but it also uses the names of the three main heroines and twists them into some characteristically stilted English that J-pop is known for. While the rest of the names don't really relate to English, it's worth noting how I means love in Japanese, but also sounds very much like the English pronunciation of I as in I love you. Though honestly, I personally just love how this flows and culminates into the questionable delivery of me, help me, immediately followed by the zealous explanation of Popotan before the instrumentals kick into high gear.
どちらにしようかな天の神様の言う通り二人のハートバランスくじ引きアンバランス恋も夢も憧れも止めないでいて
Under17 Best 3 そして伝説へ Last but certainly not least, we have Under17's grand finale for their compilation albums. This is it, going all out with a 2-disc release 3 days before Christmas in 2004, and a triumphant announcement of their status as legends within the moe song scene. There was no better message to leave their fans with than this collection of songs here. This is the first album I listened to when first getting into Under17, so it has a special place in my heart. For the longest time, it contained my favorite songs, and I would listen to it on repeat during the fall and winter of 2019. While I later would warm up to their other work, I never forgot the importance of these songs to me. I found this because it included the full-length recording of Kujibiki on Balance, which I knew from Genshiken. Though since I had the songs all downloaded on my hard drive, I gave it a listen anyways, and I guess you can say the rest is history. Concluding with my discussion on aesthetics of the album covers, let's get into this one, shall we? It primarily uses a tan color for the backgrounds, while adding a subtle purple for text and on the obi, which perfectly complements the style of these songs. While playful, there are a number of mature ballad songs which give off a more relaxed or comfy feeling as opposed to the previous entries. One could describe this cover art as bad or low effort, but I would call it charming. It screams early 2000s Photoshop, and I would imagine either some poor intern made it, or perhaps even Koike-san or Momoi-san did themselves, based on the amateur editing it radiates. Specifically, how some photos are cropped very poorly, and we can clearly tell where the photos cut off. Regardless, it's a scrapbook of iconic moments and cool poses. Momoi-san wearing the most iconic stage costumes, and Koike-san adorning himself in a leather overcoat and sunglasses that looks like he was following the Nomura Tetsuya School of Design a bit too closely. For some reason, the back illustrates a silhouette of the Statue of Liberty, which I guess is symbolic of their status as world-famous Moe artists. While undeniably goofy with shoddy editing, and a questionable English slogan reading, "To and a tradition," I'll give it full points for their smiles, even if Koike-san remains stoic for the majority of his photos. As mentioned previously, the majority of these songs are from the group's later work, ergo, it's them at their most mature. Their style has been refined, and they are celebrating the art of moe song they have popularized and are now setting the standard for. This is probably the best UNDER17 has been and would ever be, and is captured on compact disc for all eternity. Onwards into legend. 1. Nabu Surebu, Love Slave.
I'm your slave. あなただけは特別だから何でも言ってください I'm your slave. あなただけは
This album opens with Dear S's opening song, and is a very enjoyable song despite me finding the show quite bad. As far as mainstream popularity goes, I would imagine Love Slave was one of their more popular songs, considering it was the opening song to a reasonably popular manga done by Peach Pit, known for their work on Rose and Maiden. Moving past the questionable lyrics that haven't aged well due to modern social movements, the song itself is pretty fun. It retains the catchy J-pop chorus that I find myself singing or humming along to, while enjoying the groovy sounds of the instrumentals. Truthfully, it can get a bit repetitive. However, I would imagine this is the result of a bigger problem plaguing anime opening and ending songs in general. I call this the any-song problem, which most of these songs have a very strong hook and chorus within the first 80 to 90 second span, but tend to lose a lot of steam rapidly after the opening section of the song. This is because these songs were designed for usage in anime, where the typical opening song is allotted 80 to 90 seconds, meaning the song needs to reach the climax around the 75% mark to match with the excitement of the opening. This isn't a hard and fast rule, as it's not as prevalent in less mainstream anime, or anime that use existing songs edited down to fit the length of the OP or ED. However, it's fairly common within the realm of more mainstream and modern anime as of late. This is why listening to non-TV size recordings of these songs tend to sound a bit repetitive or lose steam around the midsection, because the rest of the song was never intended to be used in the show. Number 2. Kujibiki on Balance.
どちらにしようかな天の神様の一人二人のハートバランスくじ引きアンバランス恋も夢も憧れも止めないでいて
Kujibiki on Balance is both the name of this song and a parody of early 2000s rom-com anime in the meta-narrative of Genshiken, eventually becoming its own OVA and later a TV series. Kuji-un is an amalgamation of popular manga and bishoujo game tropes from the time, and is reflective of the then current trends within popular otaku culture. For example, the prevalence of ecchi and slapstick comedy, a predominantly female cast of over-designed characters, and a more traditional large-eyed moe look, and absurdist comedy in the story. This is the manga the characters of the Genshiken follow religiously, and was intended to parody these trends to give a look at what otaku were interested in around 2004. In addition to the visual style and narrative elements of the show, the song Kujibiki on Balance was created for the parody series and later used as the opening song to the first episode of Genshiken for some metatextual fun. Using UNDER17 and Momoi Haruko to perform the song was a logical choice, as the group had just worked on Dear S, which was just wrapping up its one core run that September, with Genshiken's first episode premiering in October of the same year. Akiba-kei otaku like Madarame Harunobu and Kugayama Mitsunori, who enjoyed playing eroge and spending many afternoons in the Electric Town, would have been familiar with the music of UNDER17. The song itself is beautiful. Despite the upbeat J-pop sound, it is somewhat melancholic lyrically. This is not uncommon for Under17 as many of their lyrics are juxtaposed to upbeat instrumentals, which was somewhat common practice within Bishoujo games at the time. For example, popular Naki-gei developers like Visual Arts Key would feature pretty girls in tragic situations to provoke genuine emotional response from the player. In addition to that, as discussed with the aforementioned Popotan, many of these games concluded with a less upbeat song in the ending credits, intended to invoke feelings of introspection, longing, and nostalgia. It seemed like developers at the time were intentionally making absurd games with slapstick humor to mask their own lingering emotional unrest, and likely resonating with the demographic of people playing these games. As such, Kujibiki Unbalance fits snugly within the meta at the time, as it discusses feelings of melancholic love, surely something Bishoujo game players were all too familiar with from their bleak memories of high school romance. Additionally, there are other instances of nods to popular trends at the time. Let's look at the line, "Do you remember that promise we made so long ago?" Osana Najimi heroines were popularized after Fujisaki Shiori from Tokimeki Memorial and has saturated the market of Bishoujo games ever since. One such trope common in all the routes of these heroines is the childhood promise, which is typically the main character and the Osana Najimi promising to get married when they grow up. In the first episode of Genshiken, when Saki is explaining her relationship with Kosaka extends back to childhood, Madarame and the gang get all riled up seeing the power of the Osana Najimi heroine in action right before them.
だからさ、高坂とは子供の時、家が近所だったんだよ。君、一年生？
あれ？君もしかしてさきちゃんでしょ？あ、嘘！
高坂くん？
うわー！春日部さん、幼馴染キャラだったのか。
すげえ、マジいるんだ。
初めて見た！
やっぱりオタク臭いよな。
For the lonely otaku playing these games in a darkened room, the fantasy of having a childhood friend who has always been there with you and promises emotional support forever is intoxicating. It's very vanilla for sure, but it's also very moe. For me, Kujibiki Unbalance is a song about those lingering feelings of times when the odds were stacked against you. Otaku have traditionally been marginalized people who oftentimes revel in the fact that they are in the lowest caste of society. This is a song which reflects many of the feelings that otaku might have, and as such, is very nostalgic. It doesn't parallel to our experiences, but the images of dazzling sunlight filtering through the trees, sparkles dancing in your eyes, or, by chance, on the road home, your long shadow is cast, we are now together, are reminders of the quieter moments of Bishoujo games. These games are impactful because they are driven by pathos. The feelings humans are capable of feeling are finally brought to the table and presented in a way otaku can finally experience. A song that presents both the melancholia of times when things didn't go our way, but also the waku waku and doki doki of our first time your crush finally confesses to you. A more perfect song simply cannot exist. (15) 1+1. 1+1 is perhaps my favorite Under17 song. It's very derivative from their usual style, but fits snugly within the selection of their ballad songs. I feel as if it is a perfect display of the musical abilities of both Koike-san and Momoi-san, as they are able to metaphorically stretch their wings here and perform a beautiful 6-minute and 18-second song full of fragile emotions and feelings of regret. Not only in vocal performance either, as here Koike-san gets an opportunity to have a guitar solo, which he performs admirably in. It was included as the image song for the anime Dear S, which the group also performed the opening song for, as mentioned previously. This song is less moe and more in line with the feelings they would evoke in the ending sequences to Bishoujo games, similar to Kotae from Popotan. Lyrically, the song is about regret. The speaker yearns for the opportunity to have another chance at conveying their feelings to the person they loved, as that person goes further and further away. At first, trying to convince themselves that it might have been better not to meet them at all, before realizing their true feelings will always persist. This is a powerful song about unrequited love that, while not groundbreaking lyrically or instrumentally, makes me remember love from days gone, times in high school when I would watch as the person I had a crush on would find her own love, only to have my feelings linger like tears in the rain. I'm not sure if I would do it all over again, like this song suggests, once bitten, twice shy. However, the strength of the emotions of the narrator explain if given the opportunity, they wouldn't make the same mistakes again. We've all heard the same story of unrequited love repeated thousands of times and told in every which way, but here I feel something more moving, something nostalgic, I suppose, urging me to reflect introspectively and think about the days when I still cared about such things. 17. Tenbatsu, Angel Rabi des, live version. I refrain from discussing the studio recording of Tenbatsu Angel Rabi during the discussion of the first album because the Yokohama Blitz live performance is undoubtedly a more profound emotional piece which extends beyond the scope of the song itself.
いきますよ
Tenbatsu Angel Rabi is a pretty bad one-episode OVA released in 2004 by AIC and Media Factory, which featured Under17's titular song as the ending theme. The OVA was an adaptation of the 2003 Bishoujo game Magical Twirler Angel Rabi, and also had the ending song Angelic Magic performed by the group. The OVA would use a slightly updated version of the song called the Desu version for the ending sequence. The significance of this specific recording is that it was the last time Koike-san and Momoi-san performed as Under17 before disbanding. The announcement that the group would break up was made on September 27, 2004, while the final concert was held on November 22nd of the same year, meaning that both the fans and the artists knew that this would be the last time on stage as Under17, and wanted to make it count, and make it count they did. I'm not fond of attending live concerts, and I don't like adding an extra level of abstraction in my listening experience, and adding in the inevitable speaker distortion and crowd noise gets me mildly agitated. I never really understood the appeal of attending concerts because of this. But none of this mattered when I listened to Momoi-san's final performance on stage, culminating into an emotional climax of a triple encore. Words cannot explain how the unrestrained joy of fans and the vocalist alike as they shared this impassioned moment, crowd complimenting singer and vice versa. Everybody there is noticeably fatigued and covered in sweat, but nobody is ready to say goodbye. Every time we hear Tenbatsu, 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 Fu, Fu, We are reinvigorated with Moe energy. It's painfully obvious Momoi-san is tired, but she taps into the last reserves of her energy to give this song as the ultimate parting gift for her fans. It's not too often we see live performances like this which manage to engage the audience in a way that complements the music. It was after I listened to this song that I felt I finally understood the appeal of going to a concert like this. The magic of this moment, forever preserved on CD, reflects the passion of UNDER17 perfectly. While listening to the studio recording of the song, it's hard to put into perspective of what makes it special. By anyone's account, it's simply another opening song from a Bishoujo game. Maybe a handful of Japanese otaku have played, all 6 of which giving it a mediocre rating of 53 on Eroge Escape. The lasting impact of the song and the artist who performed it have eclipsed the popularity of the game. I have never played Magical Twirler or Angel Rabby, and I doubt I ever will. I doubt most people in the Yokohama Blitz concert that night in late November played it either, yet we were all singing along to it and knew the lyrics by heart. I only know of it and everything else I've talked about here because of UNDER17, so even if UNDER17 does not make music anymore, I can listen to their endless encore of Tenbatsu Angel Rabby for all eternity. そして伝説へ During the majority of 2018, I suffered a destructive, depressive period that prevented me from really enjoying life all that much. I would passively watch YouTube and sometimes found it in me to watch anime, all to try to take my mind off things for a bit. After months of this, things started to look brighter. The culprit of my negative thoughts was removed, and I no longer felt like I needed to tell my counselor about wanting to disappear forever. I returned home from university for the summer and fell headlong back into otaku media. I found solace once again in the playful colors and animation and happy music, reminding me of things I had forgotten in life during my depressive period. I started thinking about Genshiken and Madarame Harunobu a lot and started to adopt a way of living. Kujibiki Unbalanced started to play for me once again. Then I started to get really into 4chan's JP board, and it is evident when looking at my Toho Fumo plushies and Onaho boxes in my room, I guess. I was also getting really into Bishoujo games as well after seeing how much Kosaka Kirino enjoyed them. I started playing Two Heart 2 and listening to Wakiyaku Ja Owaranai by Nanahira on repeat all night after work. I started to find joy in life once again, ironically, by rejecting it. I soon found Denpa music threads on JP. I had previously closely followed the Doujin music and Comiket threads every August and December for releases from Toho music circles I followed. Within these threads, I found the thing I never realized I needed. Denpa music brightened my days, and I soon found myself exclusively listening to this type of music. This music taught me the value of taking a moment to breathe and enjoy the fuwa-fuwa in life. Moe Denpa filled my heart with sugar-coated love letters from a country I was perhaps wrongly infatuated with, but nevertheless captivated me through its media. I was equal parts embracing my problems and rejecting the flip side. This is because Moe, and by extension Denpa, is punk rock. Momoi Haruko poses the following question in an interview. Isn't Moe a little like punk was in England? Because for her, Moe is counterculture. It is hard to understand for many people and was once perhaps perceived as vaguely criminal. But despite all the hate, Moe fans continue to do their own thing. It's seemingly a weak attempt at being countercultural, but I think this is the best us otaku can manage. Escaping to the world of 2D and Moe was the quintessential Denpa existence, being a person who was perceived to be disassociating with reality, but truthfully, having perhaps a better grasp at understanding the world and ourselves than most of the critics might give us credit for. Within these lackadaisical summer afternoons filled with abstractions of cute girls singing sugar-coated words traveling into our ears, I think I finally found peace. After a year of thinking my life was not worth living, I finally found something I could look at and remind me that smiling was a good thing. Throughout my relatively brief history with UNDER17, I have always found something in their discography to fit my mood, be it a fun moe song to listen to walking home after a long week and feeling excited to take a few days off, or a more introspective ballad song to evoke bittersweet emotions from times I still find myself remembering. Be it openings to games or anime, UNDER17 has always managed to provide an unrivaled listening experience for me because of the somewhat ambiguous energy thing I keep going on about. I guess it's simply passion. Momoi Haruko and Koike Masaya were two artists who cared deeply about the things they were making, regardless of their public perception. Let's be honest here, performing pop songs within a niche erotic game market is not the most respectable career path as a musician. However, they gave it their all, and I think that is what fans like me enjoyed the most. I'm not a music expert or even all that well versed in genre-defining artists that other people enjoy listening to. I've listened to OK Computer, I Wish You Were Here, In the Court of the Crimson King, and Loveless, and while I appreciate them, I have a hard time enjoying these as anything but an artistic achievement. But ultimately, the most important thing about making any art is for the artist to be passionate about what they're making. That energy is contagious, and for me, UNDER17 did this better than anyone else.